Representative Hawkins, Brian, was back today with a bill to protect kids and give parents some power. Let's watch this presentation. This is House Bill 352, and we'll let Hawkins introduce it here.
Before you this morning with House Bill 352, which in its original form, these two bills that we've heard this morning were together, and after lots of public comment, which I was a little surprised on this part in 352, that the largest complaint I got was that, why are we stopping at the third grade? I had several text messages and emails that asked me, so in grades 4 and on, this is okay. And just to point out, in light of our current president and his announcements last night, this issue of teaching sexual orientation and gender identity will now be listed at the federal level, that any school system teaching these subjects will be denied their portion of federal funding. And that's what this bill does. This bill now moves K through 12, that these subjects in the public schools will be prohibited from providing classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity from kindergarten through the 12th grade. This provision reinforces parental rights in determining how and when their children will be introduced to these subjects.
You're muted.
Yeah, Brian, is school? I do that for you folks, because I'm a heavy breather over here. If those clips are going and I'm breathing, it's bad news for everybody. And I do a lot of coughing. But Brian, is this? I mean, when we send our kids to school, we want them to learn all about the different sexual orientations, right? I thought that's the whole point of public school. Public school is where you learn how to be gay, or learn how to be bi, how to be pansexual. I mean, isn't that where? That's why I would want to send my kids to public school.
Well, as they say, the purpose of a system is what it does, and that's certainly what it's been doing lately, isn't it? And so again, that's talking about local control. We need when local school boards are. And it's, just to do a little weave here, as Senator Lenny pointed out, it's not necessarily local control. It's not like a bunch of school boards are just suddenly deciding to implement these things. It's that they're getting these mandates from on high, from teachers' unions, from administrators, from the Federal Department of Education when it was controlled by Democrats, to push these things. And so this is where we do need the state to step in and say, no, the purpose of schools is to educate children in reading, writing, arithmetic, help them become good citizens of our republic, not to teach them all these other things. And the point that Representative Hawkins made is a point I've heard a lot. A couple of years ago, Florida had their bill to do essentially the same thing, say that you couldn't teach these things, teach gender identity and stuff in K through 5th grade or whatever the number was. And a lot of people rightly pointed out, wait, are you then essentially mandating that they're allowed to do that from 5th grade on? And so he said, okay, that's a good point. Let's just get rid of it in the entire school.
Right. And that's exactly what's going on here. There's no reason to be sitting in classroom with teachers teaching you about fornication in various forms, and whether or not you can show up one day as a boy or as a girl or as a furry or as a tree or as a stormtrooper. Like, who knows? Like focus on reading, writing, focus on that, focus on math. I mean, that's all you have to do. That's all they have to do. Okay.
And they're not even doing that, because if you look at the, standardized test scores.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, Representative Harris, a rising star, I'll say, in the legislature, he had some reaction to this bill. Let's watch that.
That we send House Bill 352 to the floor with a due pass. I'd like to speak to some of this.
Yes, please.
At the end of the day, when public education came into being, it was supposed to teach kids how to be proficient in reading, writing, speaking, doing some math, social studies, history, and it's kind of grown and grown and grown. And at some point, parents just kind of got left behind, and teachers started talking to our kids about sex and gender identity and all these things that I feel are inappropriate for my own kids that are in public education. It's my job as a parent to deal with these situations, not some random teacher at a school that I don't know. As far as the definition of sexual orientation, this is in code. I'm looking at a section of code here, Title 67, Chapter 59, that talks about human rights, and it just says sexual orientation with no definition. So I'm sure somewhere in the state legislative code there is a definition of sexual orientation. This is a no-nonsense bill. We need to get the trust back, like Mr. Taylor spoke to earlier. Public education is not bad in this state, but it's got a bad reputation, and this is a step that will take us in the direction to get some of that trust back with the parents to fix some of these issues, in my opinion.
Yeah, really good stuff there. I sometimes we get lost when we just say teachers and schools, but it really comes down to like, okay, if a teacher is going to raise this issue and bring up this subject material, who are they? What is their motive behind this? Mm-hmm. Because most of the people that I see that want to talk about different sexual orientations, right? And trying to figure out which one are you, these aren't the most savory characters. I just got to put it out there. I don't trust somebody who's obsessed with talking with children about their sexual orientation, right?
Yeah, that's you go back 50 or so years and say that we need a law to tell teachers to not talk about sexual matters with their students, and they think, okay, what exactly is going on here? Did we lose the war? But we've lost the war, Brian. I mean, we ceded ground. We did cede a lot of ground, and we got to take it back. Yeah, we're taking it back.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same thing with the gender identity stuff, which is just preying upon, confused children who are going through puberty. They're going through, I don't know too many kids who go through puberty who are just like happy-go-lucky about it all, right? Yeah. It's a very sticky, messy situation, and it could get you in a lot of different scenarios and different headspaces with your friends, with your teachers, with your family, and these predators out there, these vultures that are ready to just prey on these people. So it really does come down to this. We're protecting these children from those type of people in those situations. Mm-hmm. Very good. And again, this law here is only for public schools, mm-hmm. Which I think is okay, considering, I mean, your kids, you've admitted on the program before, admitted like it's a bad thing, but you've shared on the program before that your children go to a private mm-hmm. education. Is this a big deal in your school? Do kids need to learn this stuff in your private school?
No, as they're not learning these kind of things in my school. They're busy learning history and grammar and Latin.
Yeah, and Latin. Look at that. All right. Well, let's listen to this exchange here with is it Matthias and Hawkins? I think it is. Let's listen to that.
Matthias.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Hawkins, thank you for pointing out the new federal position. This bill doesn't have a definition of sexual orientation. Can you point us to the definition that the feds will be using to make determinations of whether to withhold federal funds?
I might just note it's a little bit hard to hear you, Representative Matthias.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chairman.
Maybe it's just me, but
sorry about that. My question was the definition of sexual orientation is not in this bill, but since the feds are now withholding federal funds for schools that teach this, can you point us to the definition they are using to make determinations?
Representative Hawkins.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Matthias, I can't point you to the piece of code that they will be using, but I do know that we are not dealing with physiology or biology.
Yeah, Brian. Why do Democrats ask questions like that?
Because
I mean, they know exactly what we're talking about.
The Democrats know exactly what we're trying to do, and they don't like it. But right. They don't want to be caught on the mic saying, "No, we want your children to be exposed to radical gender queer theory in grade school," because I think they understand that doesn't play well with most people. So they have to find other reasons to oppose the bill and find excuses to try and stop it.
Yeah. Do you think that there's, I mean, look, I respect, Representative Matthias. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's a good family man. But there's a part of me that's thinking, has he just drank the leftist Kool-Aid so much so that he's willing to sacrifice thousands and thousands of children's, mental health and their lives simply so that way he doesn't come across that he's being mean to somebody who may be going through, something similar to this stuff? I mean, Because then there's those who are clear predators. They're clearly a danger, I think, to society. But I wouldn't put Matthias in that section.
I find it difficult to put my head in their space on this one, because it does seem like it's, just trying to be nice and compassionate, but in doing so, they're accepting this massive lie that there's this whole spectrum of sex and gender, that you can change it depending on how you feel, and that you can transition from one to the other, and to take that lie and then use it to really mess up young children. Like you were saying about going through puberty, who's happy-go-lucky at that time? Everybody feels like the world is changing because, they are changing. And to swoop in at that very moment when children are feeling unsure and uncertain and confused, and tell them, well, the reason you're feeling confused is because you might be a different gender than what you think you are. It's evil. I really believe instead we should be reiterating what President Trump said in his speech last night. We want children to understand that they are perfect the way God made them. Not, you don't have to alter yourself with drugs or hormones or surgeries to become who you're supposed to be. You are who you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. It was a great moment last night. But again, the highlight of that particular moment was that none of the Democrats clapped for that. They are just in lockstep with this mindset, and it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and we see it here on the state level. You see it here in your own communities. I mean, you see it on your school boards. God forbid you see it in the classroom where it does real damage, and that's what we're seeing. And that's you can sit on your hands and inside the Congress and not clap for a line like that, and we call that evil. But when your teachers are doing it inside your classroom, it seems like there's a lot of us out there that are afraid to call these teachers out. And if you're a parent and you're dealing with this in your class, in your school, and you know of students that are dealing with this, and you know that there's teachers enabling this, and you're quiet, yet you scream about AOC and Pocahontas sitting on their hands and calling them evil, it's right in your backyard, folks. It's right in your backyard. You need to step up and say something. You need to get out from behind the fear veil and speak out and save these children. I don't know how many times I have heard these stories. Brian, I'm sure you've heard them too, about what's going on inside these classrooms. And yet people just won't come forward. And I'm not about to do it for them. It's not my place. But I just beg you to come forward, because we know you're out there. And for the folks out there that keep saying to us, oh, you're lying, you don't have any of these stories, then, I mean, I got nothing to say except that we're stuck in that situation. I'll gladly take those arrows that everybody thinks I'm lying. I'll gladly take those arrows because I'm not. Final word on this, Brian?
Oh, they still pretend that it's not happening, and it's a good thing that it's happening. So let's stop it from happening in our public schools.
Yeah, absolutely.